30 years of SummerSlam, and unlike the environment, it hasn't really gotten hotter. I'm Chris Wolvie, the wrestling vlogger who always tells it like it is. 1988. A septuagenarian Republican is president, we don't know our relationship with Russia, and we're scared of a nation trying to nuke us. The more things change, huh? But it was also the year Vince McMahon hit us with the last of the 4 major WWE pay-per-views. The first was WrestleMania match, then came Survivor Series, then Royal Rumble, though the first wasn't actually on pay-per-view, but I'm still calling it that. And the last one was SummerSlam. It took place in late August at Madison Square Garden in New York City. Because when you think hot, you think August in New York. Now, trust me on that. I lived on Long Island for 11 summers. Now, it started with a tag team match that ended in a time limit draw, which is non-existent these days, and ended with a tag team match that drew a lot of ire at the time. In between, the Ultimate Warrior ended a record-breaking Intercontinental title reign in 31 seconds. A few rivalries got resolved. Almost every match had someone on the outside to screw things up. But everyone was there for the main event. The mega powers of Hulk Hogan and then WWE Champion Randy Macho Man Savage against the mega bucks of Ted DiBiase and Andre the Giant, with the future governor of Minnesota as the ref. And what did this come down to? Elizabeth showing off her legs. Yeah, so in retrospect, SummerSlam did not start out that great. I mean, it was a serviceable pay-per-view and card, but hardly worth shelling out the 30 or 40 bucks. Still, it made major bucks since pay-per-view revenue ain't refundable, and it prompted Ted Turner to start cranking out pay-per-views of his own for WCW, thus escalating the war between the moguls. The pay-per-view really didn't heat up until 1991 with the match made in heaven, Savage and Elizabeth's on-screen wedding, and the match made in hell, Hogan and Warrior versus Sergeant Slaughter and his Iraqi wackies. And the following year at Wembley Stadium in London, the Intercontinental title match between brothers-in-law Bret Hart and British Bulldog in the main event, off the hook. And the undercards were pretty good too. After apexing in the early 90s, SummerSlam settled in and came up with some great, though at times predictable, matches. For instance, we all knew Triple H would win the second Elimination Chamber match and hold the world title, and that Goldberg would be screwed by him and Ric Flair. And we kind of figured Randy Orton would win the world title against Chris Benoit because, hey, this was Evolution's time. But there's some unexpectedly good matches, too. Like Eugene holding his own against Triple H, Hogan's return to the pay-per-view beating Shawn Michaels, and Flair beating Mick Foley in an I Quit match. Sure, the matches weren't all great, but those that rocked enough to boost the entire card. Things started to slow as the late 90s came around. Anyone remember the Great Khali in the world title matches of 07 and 08? Or Triple H kicking Booker T out of the kingship and into TNA? Or Edge or Undertaker putting Edge through Hell in a Cell? Not really, right? But in 2009, the SummerSlam seemed to get a permanent home in the Staples Center in Los Angeles, because LA gets pretty damn hot in August as well. And it started to heat up again. DX versus Legacy, Punk beating Hardy in a ladder match for the world title, Team WWE versus The Nexus, Alberto Del Rio cashing in Money in the Bank for the WWE title that Punk just won a few minutes before. All these matches pushed the rest of the cards into 4 out of 5 star territory. It's always nice to have consistency, doesn't it? Now, of course, things started to slip a bit, and probably not ironically, it started when Brock Lesnar reappeared. Oh, there were decent matches, but it almost seemed like Brock brought the card down with each appearance. The no DQ match he had with Triple H was alright, but it did nothing to help a card that was mediocre at best. And then he repeated the match against CM Punk, and while it was one of the longest matches Brock's been in since the return, the fact is that it was a mid-card between a Ring of Fire match and another Money in the Bank cash-in didn't exactly help. Although what he did to John Cena, coining the phrase Suplex City that one year, that was beautiful. Then for some reason the WWE got tired of the Staples Center or vice versa. So the event shifted coasts to the Barclays Center in Brooklyn. It was supposed to be the Nassau Coliseum, but it was going to be torn down, except that it wasn't torn down, and it's complicated, alright? And for some reason, the change in venue did not help much. The Divas Revolution match was pretty good, as was the WWE US title unification match between Seth Rollins and John Cena, but the rest of the card was middling at best, and Neville and Green Arrow versus Wade Barrett and Cody Rhodes at worst. And the controversial ending to the Lesnar-Undertaker match didn't help. And the next year, Finn Balor became the first ever Universal Champion for 24 hours, but not even the surprise return of Nikki Bella or the fact Charlotte beat Sasha Banks for the women's title helped. And again, a controversial ending to the Lesnar match against Orton. And last year's event wasn't all that great either. I mean, for each Shield versus Bar, there was a Big Cass versus Big Show. Each AJ Styles versus Kevin Owens was countered with an Orton beating Rusev in 10 seconds flat. Not even the Fatal 4-Way helped, as we knew that Brock would hold the Universal title, no matter how big the brutes were against him. So, we are nearly 30 years removed from that first SummerSlam in Manhattan, and the latest iteration will happen roughly 5 miles south-southeast of where it started in just a week. Pretty much every title is on the line. They might as well have called it SummerSlam Night of Champions. But it seems the build-up has been overshadowing Raw and SmackDown as they focus on hype for those matches more than the matches on Raw and SmackDown. Now, the lineup looks good, don't get me wrong, but I just can't help but feel that NXT TakeOver Brooklyn 4 might just be a better card. Let's hope I'm wrong, and that the 31st SummerSlam will rekindle the flame, and that it doesn't suffer from global cooling. We'll see next week. And you'll see my predictions then. I did pretty good with Extreme Rules, didn't I? I'm Chris Wolvie, the wrestling blogger who always tells it like it is. See ya!